and welcome to another bonus episode of the Laurel and Hardy podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Vasey, and today's show is a little bit different. On Saturday, the 30th of August 2025, I hosted the first meeting of our Fraternally Yours online discussion group. Now, you may have seen this advertised particularly on the Fraternally Yours Facebook group, which, if you don't know, is the Laurel and Hardy podcast's online community. The Fraternally Yours group is made up of patrons of the podcast, specifically those signed up to the Plumtree tier. We had a great session that primarily discussed the Laurel and Hardy short Perfect Day, tying in, of course, with the last proper episode of the podcast. But as usually happens, we also went off on some tangents and discussed other areas of the Laurel and Hardy universe. So I took all of that and edited it down to around about an hour and made this bonus episode so that all regular listeners of the show can listen in and see what it was all about. Joining us for the session was my guest from the previous episode, Chris Seguin, and also my good friend Russ Babbage. Now, if you don't know, Russ works side by side with me on the Laurel and Hardy Silence book. He also was behind the Laurel and Hardy magazine, and he also designs all of the podcast's graphics and the website as well. During the session, we actually watched Perfect Day, and also Russ provided a picture quiz, both of which, of course, wouldn't work on an audio podcast, so therefore I've cut those bits out. If you enjoy what you hear and you'd like to be part of the next Fraternally Yours group meeting, which will be happening at the end of September 2025, then just head over to laurelandhardyfilms.com and look for the links straight to our Patreon page, where you can join up to the Plumtree tier for as little as a couple of cups of coffee per month. I'll also put a link to the Patreon page in the podcast show notes below. Oh, and just while we're on the subject of Patreon, I really want to give a shout out and thanks to the following people who have recently become patrons of the podcast, either on the Plumtree tier or also the Lower Elements tier. And those people are David, Paul Hunt, Brad Philippone, Chris Seguin, Tony Butcher, Paul, James Hanna, Phil Pavling, George Cullen, Dean Phillip, and Jeff Belmore. So thank you all, one and all, for your support and for becoming patrons of the show. It means so much to me that you want to be part of the podcast going forward. So that's it for now. Sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this discussion from the inaugural meeting of the Fraternally Yours group. Welcome, everybody. This is going to be a little bit of a trial, because obviously this is the first session of these that we've done. The idea. Oh, I should introduce Russell first. This is Russ, who is my partner in Laurel and Hardy Crime. You've probably heard me mention Russ before in a number of podcasts. Russ and I became friends. How many years ago now? 5 years ago. About 5 years ago, purely because I knew he'd got images and I wanted them. So I just sent him
mercenary.
I sought him out, sent him a very unwanted email out of the blue to say, I'm writing a book about Laurel and Hardy silent films, and I think you might have some images. Would you let me use some of them? And within moments, he literally phoned me right back and said, not only will I let you use them, but I want to design everything that you do. I want to be part of it. This is wonderful. And I thought, this is a bit too good to be true. It's one of those kind of, is this a scam? And I'm still not sure, if I'm honest.
It's the long scam.
Yeah, it's the long scam, yeah.
So, yeah, and we've become fast friends ever since. Oh, Tony, are you back?
Testing.
How are you?
Yay!
Excellent. Welcome, Tony. Tony. I just want to point out, Tony is the person who very, very fortunately lives in the house that Stan Laurel was born in. So There we go.
Isn't that remarkable?
That's a claim to fame. Sorry, I don't know if you want me to share that, Tony, but I have now anyway, so I can't take it.
So we know where you live
Retract
now.
it.
Which is great.
Forget what I said. So this is Russell. As I was saying, this is Russell. So where was I? I was going to say something about tonight. So the purpose of this evening and the Fraternally Yours group, obviously Fraternally Yours, you will know, is the UK version of Sons of the Desert, and that really is the kind of the essence that I'm trying to create here, is a bit of an online Sons of the Desert as much as possible, mostly to do with the spirit of what the Sons of the Desert represents. In terms of Russ and I were talking, John McCabe, we were watching a video of him talking about what did he say?
It was a Sons called Revenge of the Sons of the Desert, and he was on there and he was saying, you all know this, of course, that when he set with Stan, said, well, we want to have a club, but we don't want it to be a fan club. We want it to, he said, be more of a movie buff club, and just to show a few films. And so we were talking about how important it was to try and make sure we show, because we're going to show a film tonight. Because we felt if we were going to have an evening, you want to have Stan and Babe together, right? Rather than just talk about them. So we're going to try, and you're going to say this, but we'll try an 8-minute hit, aren't we?
Yes, yeah. We're going to show Perfect Day, but we're going to show a condensed version. We're not going to sit through the whole thing. I mean, tell us if that was something that you might like to do on occasion when we meet up. If you'd like to sit and watch the whole film together in real time, we can certainly do that. But I've sort of edited down the film to about 8 minutes. And it's the sort of just the pithy elements and the highlight reel, if you like. And a lot of the bits that we talked about in the podcast, Chris and I, are involved in this. So it's just to refresh everyone's memory. When Russ and I discussed it, we said, let's get it down to about 1.5 minutes of just the best bits. And I started with 13 minutes.
He couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it. It's awful.
It broke his heart. You're removing all the gold. So we're gonna try it. So we'll start off with that shortly. We'll start off with that video, if that's all okay. So I'm going to share the screen. Hopefully it will work. We've tested the technology; it should work. And then we'll come back together and we'll just sort of discuss what we like and what we didn't like. I'd like to ask the question now, while you're watching it and thinking, is obviously we're trying to set up. We'd like to set up a Fraternally Yours that we can just open this sort of evening to having a feeling that you would all. How many of you guys have been to Sons of the Desert meetings? Tony, you've been to thousands, haven't you, Tony? And so what we want
Quite a few.
All right.
A few thousand.
Sorry, 2,000. Yeah. But what we wanted to do tonight is to try and sort of bring the spirit of the boys back, and also just open it up and see if it works, because it's a tricky thing to do, I think, this thing online, to keep it buoyant, to be in the memory of the boys, and to keep it fresh and zingy. So we've got
and interesting as well.
Hey, before we begin, sorry, I don't know that, because a lot of people here by their first names. I don't know who I might know from like the Facebook community.
Okay.
Like I do know a Tony, but
It's
I don't
Tony
know
Butcher.
Tony Butcher. Okay.
Yeah, Tony Butcher.
I do know a Brad.
Actually, what would be, as there's only a few of us here, what would be nice is if we just,
and I see a user.
Yeah, just say who's who.
Yeah.
Introduce yourselves, because it would be really nice to know. Yeah, it's a good idea. So Karen, can we start with you, because you're top left of my screen?
Oh, what should I say?
Just your name, where you are in the world.
Okay.
And let's tell us your first memory of Laurel and Hardy, because that's what a lot of people like on the podcast.
Okay. Well, I'm in the Rochester, New York area. And my first memory of watching Laurel and Hardy is when I was a very, very tiny person many years ago. One of our local TV stations had a show on Saturday and Sunday mornings. It was called the Shh Show, because the children were supposed to get up and watch and be quiet while mom and dad were sleeping. But they played, it was at the time when the local TV stations would play the cartoons and shorts. So they did Laurel and Hardy.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Karen.
That's brilliant.
I'm going to ask Brad.
Okay. Hey, I'm Brad Eastridge, and I'm in Tennessee. And my earliest memory of Laurel and Hardy is definitely rolling on the floor with my cousins watching Tit for Tat over and over again, because we had that on VHS.
Good one to start with. That's a good one. Love it. That's great. Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Greenfield. I'm in Youngstown, Ohio, USA. Like so many other lucky kids, I grew up in the 50s and early 60s when local TV, which I know was much different than TV was in Great Britain, local TV stations bought syndicated packages, not only Laurel and Hardy, but Our Gang, the Warner Brother cartoons, the great Fleischer Popeye cartoons. I had a very enriched childhood because I was exposed to that 5 days a week. They would have local hosts that did after school shows, and on top of their own little comedy bits, they would run the films. And I was lucky enough to see that. I had another well, that's another whole thing, but I had an uncle who worked at the local affiliate that has those films. Seeing my interest, he got me Everson's book in 1968. So all of a sudden I could put titles to the films, know who the supporting characters were, et cetera. And it took off from there. It's been a lifelong thing ever since then.
Fabulous. That's lovely.
That's great.
Lovely.
It's really good.
Thank you, Mike. Derek.
Hi, yeah, I'm Derek. I'm in Cheshire in the UK, and I think my memory is the 70s. I used to watch. My dad was a big Laurel and Hardy fan, and he got me into the boys. And then they used to be on BBC TV in the 70s quite regularly.
That was Saturday mornings, right?
Saturday mornings, was it?
Yeah, I think
yeah. So I used to watch it there. I think that's why I got into them. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you very much, Derek. We've got. Let's go, Tony.
Oh, hi, I'm Tony Butcher. I live in a little sleepy town called Ulverston up in Cumbria. A certain little house that people might know about. Yeah, my earliest memory, probably ABC Miners, going to the cinema. I think it was more of a compilation, probably Robert Youngston's movies, and then obviously the 70s when they were on Saturdays, as Russ was saying. And I also remember when they used to be on at 5:40 on BBC Two, dashing home from my work so that I could see them pre having a VHS.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tony. And John, welcome aboard, sir. Welcome aboard. Good to
Hello.
see you. How are
Can
you?
you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly fine.
We thought you may be.
Oh, thanks. I've had terrible trouble with trying to set this up. Nice to be here. I think a lot of people from the UK have already answered for me. I've stumbled across Laurel and Hardy on TV in the summer holidays, and then the whole thing broadened out. I'd just like to say about Tony in Ulverston at the ABC cinema in my hometown of Birkenhead. To see them on the big screen was an amazing event. And, that's just created a lifelong love.
Excellent.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much then. That's lovely. So we all kind of know each other. Chris, everybody knows Chris, I'm sure by now, certainly knows Chris's voice. Chris obviously was with me on the last podcast and the one before that as well, I think.
I know, we always do double headers when we do these things.
Yeah, exactly. So Chris is a font of knowledge on all things classic. I'm going to really set you up on all.
Okay, set me up to fail. Okay, thank you. I can do that myself. I don't need you.
Yeah. So the point of tonight, as I say, we're going to try and capture the spirit. We're going to have a little look at this 8-minute video highlight reel of Perfect Day. When we come back, what I'd like to do really is to give you the opportunity to ask any questions, maybe based on things you heard in the podcast, if you've listened to that already. Maybe there's some things that Chris or I mentioned that you'd like to expand on. Also, there may be things that we didn't talk about that you think, actually, this is quite an important point that you missed, and I'd like to bring this to your attention. That would be great as well, because, obviously there's quite often things that we want to talk about and either forget because, we move on too fast from a subject, or once we've kind of dried that up, then by all means, if you have any other questions, then please feel free to ask whatever you like within reason. Hopefully it's about Laurel and Hardy, and we'll take it from there. But as I said at the start, this really is a test evening, I guess. See how it goes. As patrons of the podcast, I'm so thrilled to have you with me and so grateful for your support. It really means so much that the podcast means so much to you that you want to be part of it and have more involvement in it, which is great. So
Patrick,
yes, sir.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt for a second because I do that. It was mentioned just showing Laurel and Hardy on the big screen 3 nights ago here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, at the only existing theater still standing that still runs, built in 1914, that actually had a silent movie era. Like, we're doing a series where we actually find films that played there back in the day. We find ads for them and promote them as, hey, now you can have your great-grandparents' experience in this movie theater. So we showed the cameraman, Buster Keaton, the cameraman, the other day, but we opened it up with You're Darn Tootin', and people went nuts.
Really?
And my experience with Laurel and Hardy, I mean, anyone who's listened to me on this podcast has heard me say a bazillion times that the film that nobody really likes that much, which is We Fall Down, had people cheering so loud when we showed it that out on the street they went, "What's happening in that theater? Is it burning down or what?" So, but that stuff still resonates today. It's not dated. It's pure comedy. As kind of an example, went and saw the new Naked Gun, the week before. Nobody laughed.
No.
They tried to, but it wasn't that funny, right? So, I mean, that's a thing that's always a testament. Whenever I've shown Laurel and Hardy with the Toronto Silent Film Festival, or I'm going to try to do it here, I'm going to try to at Christmas time get Babes in Toyland screened there for a kids audience. But it just, it's always magic on the big screen. And it's really the only way to see it.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. I think we've spoken many times on the show, I know, about that experience and about how seeing them on the big screen transforms the experience of those films. People scoff at birthmarks, and I'm sure that would go over a storm on a big screen.
Yes, it does. I can tell you about that.
There we go.
okay.
There we go.
I got to introduce a show at the Dryden Theater of two of the UCLA restorations. Sons of the Desert, and the short was Birthmarks. And when I introduced it, I said, "This is one that does not play so well on television by yourself, but it's designed for the audience. So let's see what happens." Well, it went over with all the laughs that you'd expect.
Fantastic. That's great. That's lovely to hear. Thank you, Karen. That's brilliant. Okay, perfect. Absolutely. On that perfect note, we'll get into the film then. And there we go.
It reminded me, Patrick, of those old Walton 8mm one reel cut downs.
Oh, okay.
They would do in the Super 8 daesback in the 70s.
Oh, I'm glad I provided you with a nostalgia trip.
Oh, everything's nostalgic for me.
Doesn't 8 minutes go quick though?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Quick. Yeah. I thought that. Yeah, I think that was fine.
I liked it. I liked the
Edit too.
the highlight reel. You did a nice job of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've seen them enough times. So it's a nice way for us to share our opinions of the film, things we might remember about the film that we haven't, that's not in the footage you show, that kind of thing. So,
And knowing that it's coming, you always have the option of watching the entire film yourself before we get together.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's good. I guess in a way that's kind of the idea, was to just refresh and enjoy it as well. Just enjoy that together, which I think is lovely. What I always find is when I'm watching it, and because obviously studying it, writing about it, podcasting about it, and then this, you start to look at different things in the backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with this film, watching Kennedy's reactions and just the way that he's nodding, and yes, I agree with what you were saying. And they just have me on the floor. And then the dog, watching Buddy the dog, is great. If you're a dog lover, especially, he's great. He's so good in that film. And I don't know if you noticed, but the bit where they open the bonnet or the hood of the car, and Ollie gets splashed and it's all on fire. Buddy does a runner at that point when the car sort of explodes. You watch for him. He jumps out the car and runs off past the cottage, and he's away. And you don't see him again. He's gone. That's it. And they're in the car driving off into the hole. So you're thinking, are they going to drown the dog? But he's actually not there. He's disappeared. He's exited stage right.
That's probably why they put that in. So wouldn't have to hold the dog up as they the mud.
That's been a good gag, actually.
Yeah. That would have
been a good gag.
And they could have animated his mouth as it was going down. It's just like, it's a dog's life, because it's a talkie,
Yeah.
Max Sennett would have done it.
Now, what I found interesting was for Perfect Day, I think it's a brilliant film. But for me, it's not one that I revisit very often. I don't get a lot out of it all the time. And I know only for very nitpicky reasons, because there's so much wealth of other great films of theirs that I like to watch more. Chris, you put it in your top 4. Well, I think it started top 6, then ended up top 4 as we were talking. It got higher and higher.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like you, where there's such a wealth of great Laurel and Hardy stuff that, like, I have ones that, I don't generally go back to. A lot of the later, like Oliver the Eighth and the Fixer Uppers, Thicker Than Water. It's like, yeah, they're their heads are elsewhere. I think, doing features. But, and there's also, to me, different variations of Laurel and Hardy. The 1929 Laurel and Hardy is very different from the 1932 Laurel and Hardy, and, Stan is dumber and that kind of thing. But just as you think of it, I've got some very specific favorites, Toad in a Hole, Busy Buddies, Blotto, but then you just kind of think about how much is happening. Laughing Gravy, super favorite, but when you think of how much is happening here, it's just a really enjoyable watch to me. It's just like one of those things where you just sit and like I never laugh at I very seldom laugh at Laurel and Hardy anymore because I've seen it all the time. But damn, I smile when I'm watching these things, right? So I think this, for me, the smile factor is the big part. If I'm sitting there just like with a big dumb grin on my face watching these things, then that's the highest praise I can give them, right? So, in reviewing Perfect Day, especially from that initial bunch of talkies, it's definitely the best. I think it's probably the best thing they did till even better than Night Owl. Probably the best thing they did till Brat, right? So it's pretty high praise, I guess, for that. But it feels natural. I know you don't kind of like the that first gag that you actually left in there. I was surprised. Yeah, no, thank you. But it feels natural. It feels like they're not doing the long talky sequences, like funny as it is. Men of War, which has those two long talky sequences of the underpants and then soda, and then a not great kind of physical comedy scene in the boat where it's just like, all right, well, this is happening, right? But it's got no structure to it. Yeah. But I don't know. It's just like a perfect little film for me. I like it a lot.
Yeah. And just talking about the not extensive dialogue, actually, that would make a really good silent film. I don't know if there's been a silent version. It probably was, and it would have made a very easy silent version, wouldn't it? Anybody else feel very strongly either way about Perfect Day? I'd like to get some other comments on it.
Not one that I watch very often either, I think. But but it's good. Watching it again, I watched it today in preparation, and I didn't realise, they started going into that reciprocal destruction bit, didn't they? And they only got stopped. It was going into a big business. Let's get the clothes off and really get into it. And then that priest comes along, and then they all stop, and then they forget about it, don't they? But I'd completely forgotten that element of the film actually until today. But I love all that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's my favorite sound short.
Is it? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, over to you. Take it away, Tony. Take it away.
It's one of those sort of things that I can get why people find it a bit irritating, and I've got friends who find the music box irritating as well, so, because of the repetition. But for me, I think with Laurel and Hardy, with lots of people, there's an emotional connection as well. So I can remember watching Perfect Day at home with my family, and it's a sort of tradition, isn't it? That obviously lots of us have, like the goodbye sequence, and I do it to this day with my older brother. But I just think it's a really charming. It's just a charming film. I just think, and obviously it's the they're forming, and the bit, and Don't Call Me Ollie. There's just little gems that are in there, and also I watched. The 29, not the 37 release with the sound track on it earlier today. And I was struck by also how much Stan was looking at the camera. And I know he does that quite a lot in the films. And obviously people talk about Ollie, looking at the camera, but Stan does it a lot as well. And I noticed it quite a lot in this. I just find it a really charming film.
That's nice. Lovely. Thank you, Tony. That's great. Yeah, I wanted to just talk a little bit about or just sort of highlight how you were talking about music box and some people not liking that or finding it irritating, and I understand why, but I think with those films, and it's interesting that I think through the Laurel and Hardy films they have different sorts of films. So with Goodbye and the music box, there is repetition in some of the films, and I think yes, it's irritating, but only if you look at it on a superficial level. When you realize how clever that is really clever comedy to be able to pull that off and do it well. And I think you either find that funny or you don't find it funny, that kind of repetition. I know my mother finds that really irritating. Why don't you just understand that's not going to work? That's not the point, mother.
There's, I'm going to interrupt, Patrick. There's a thing if you're playing these films for kids and in the audience, right? The best audience for me, we had a few the other day. If there's a little smattering of kids watching these things, and you'll inevitably hear like a 6-year-old go, "Oh no," because they see it coming. They see it coming a mile away, right? And you know that's the repetition at work. You know?
Yeah.
Well, and the anticipation too has been pointed out. You know exactly what's going to come. The anticipation is part of the fun, and you have the denouement, so to speak, and you know it's fulfilled. So that's very prominent in many of their films.
Yeah, and surely that is part of the key to how we respond to them so well, because they involve us, don't they, in their comedy. We are kind of part of it. We're shown the gag before it happens. We know what's going to happen to these two before it does. So therefore, I think we bond with it much more than we do, you know, other types of comedy where you just have to watch it unfold in front of you, and you don't know what's coming.
I think a lot of things with these films, there's another part of it which is not often spoken about, is what it was like for you for the first time you watched it. Because when I love the film for the music, for the 1937 re-release music, I know it's not official and everything, but I love the music, the bumpity bump music going through that. And I remember getting, because I used to tape them onto I used to tape these films and then listen to them over and over and over again. And so for me, Perfect Day is great because I couldn't see anything when I'm listening to it later, but I'm loving the music. And I think a lot of, I'm sure you've all experienced great films that you think are great films, but they're great films because of the mood you were at the time, the age you were, like you were saying about Tit for Tat, when you watch it over and over and over again, it brings back those memories too. So it's yes, it's classic, but it also can resonate with the past and the things you had when you were younger. And I think that just warms me when I just listen to music. I could listen to it in silence, not in silence. I wouldn't listen to it in silence. that would be a foolish thing to do. But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, just on that subject about the sound versus silent part, I remember it was a total revelation on the actually, over here these things that came out in the U.S. The Essential Collection box set was the first time that I had it without the soundtrack, and it was hilarious. And I showed people because I was in college, and it was like this existential comedy in silence that was like this whole other thing without the music. Now I prefer the music on it. But it was interesting at the time. Like it was like watching it for the brand new time.
I don't think I've seen it without the music.
Oh, I have, yeah.
I couldn't find a copy. I was looking for it for the purposes of the podcast. I couldn't find it.
Yes, it's like you said, it's on that disc, and it's without. It's the original one without music. So
I've got that disc.
It's fascinating.
Well, you know what's interesting about the music is, similar, Russell, to your thing, which is I would record the things on, onto cassette, the audio, but they put out these albums of audio clips of Laurel and Hardy, like sketches.
I've got them all.
Yeah, same here, right? But they had like an 8-minute cut down of A Perfect Day on there, and it's just all music. Yes. Really, and you hear, the little bit of dialogue. The most dialogue heavy part is at the beginning. Uncle Ed, you're coming with us. Here's the sandwiches. But then the rest is just like, you hear just these little things of "Don't call me Ollie," and that kind of stuff. And they're funny, right? Because you know what's going on, but you don't actually see the gags. But it's like the most fun thing to listen to. And this is before the Bo Hunk stuff came out, so it was really the only way to capture this music. And they edited it, and it was just like. I think that music does so much, like Blotto, the same thing.
Exactly, in Blotto.
And Bratz, it just transforms County Hospital. I'd love to see County Hospital without the reissue score because, it feels like it needs that, especially in that rear projection stuff at the end. It needs the music to create more excitement. And if that's not there, it's just, Ollie screaming, which is funny enough, but music... that's why I like showing the silent stuff. I'm gonna go off base for a little bit for a second. We showed You're Darn Tootin' a while ago, last week I should say. I particularly chose that one because the pianist I have is really good. Pianist. And
thank you for the clarification.
we've gone down this track before, Patrick.
I heard that.
With Larry Semin. But what I did was for the accompanist, I cut together three different versions of the opening sequence at the band shell, and one was the new Neil Brand one, or the Neil Brand one, not so new, the Black Hawk Films one, and then the Robert Youngson Laughing 20s version, right? And I went, here are three completely different approaches to this. You got your work cut out for you. Go for it. You did a great job just on the piano. But again, it's that thing how music can transform things, right? And Stan, who wanted music in these films originally, and it'd be hard to imagine like a lot of it's just weird when they don't have it, like in again the later ones like Thicker Than Water or in Their First Mistake, where it's not there. You really miss it. So anyway,
it's funny what you say about your darn tootin', because, and I don't know enough to distinguish all the versions, but later versions, I've seen that with newer soundtracks. My impression is nobody ever did it better than the Youngson compilation. To me, that's when they really nailed and did their best to synchronize the music on the bandstand to what was being shown. And later efforts never came up to snuff as far as I was concerned.
Agreed.
Yeah. I really like I know we're talking about Your Darn Tootin', the Neil Brand version, I think is wonderful. And that, I think I've said this before, probably on the episode, but that version, I saw that film in a totally different light, because the version that I was used to had just a standard soundtrack that's just thrown on there just to give you something.
Right.
The gags just fell totally flat. That film is so dependent upon a proper score.
Well, I was saying to you, wasn't I, that The Flying Elephants, not the greatest film in the world, and I've never watched, and I watched it on a ropey copy. When they put the soundtrack for I think it was the 1930, Chris, you might be able to help me here.
The reissue, the French reissue soundtrack.
I enjoyed the film for the first time in my life. I was rather I'd sit there and go, it's over now, before it's done. I got through it. I got it to tick it off. But I watched it, and it was funny, and it was enjoyable, and it was putting a music track to that, which was obviously made for that, completely changed that film for me. And I've watched it 3 times since because I quite enjoy it now.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to add one last thing to that, which is the theater that I'm doing. One of the reasons I'm doing this at this theater, and I just moved to this town, Hamilton, and that it's the only old movie theater still existing, was I went to a couple of silent film screenings they did of Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd, and they were so awful because they were done like with a gimmick, right? So I'll give the example of Sherlock Jr. I saw it 2 times. One was a group called Voices of Cinema. I'll mention their name because I hate them so much. Where they made a big deal of it. It was like it's an interesting combo. It's like banjo and tuba and like kind of off bass, and you go, okay, well this will be cool, right? It's something different. And they showed Sherlock Jr. and they killed the laughs with the music because. Well, before it, because Sherlock Jr. is short, they had 1 week, and they played in an endless loop this kind of dirge version of 8 We Got Fun. And 20 minutes of that, and you just want to put a gun to your head, right? And so, and so nobody laughed at this stuff, right? And then when I went to see this other thing, which was there's this guy touring around North America with Sherlock Jr. synced up to the music of REM. And he was putting these little visual gimmicks in there and stuff, and you're just kind of going, and the only time people laughed was when the music actually stopped, right? And something happened, right? And it's just going, they're killing this, right? So I went, okay, we got to do this because what happened again, then they showed, the Voices of Cinema showed Harold Lloyd in Safety Last, right? And that's like, nobody doesn't laugh at that film unless you see it with them playing, right? Well, I'll give you another example and then I'll shut up and let other people talk, which was, if you've seen Safety Last, it begins with Harold Lloyd in a train station. Right? But you think he's going to jail, but he's going to get hung. No, he's not, right? And it's like they went, oh, because it's in a train station, we're going to play Once I Had a Railroad, Made It Run, Brother Can You Spare a Dime, which again is a dirge. It makes no sense in context. They make a big point of going, we only do music from the era, but that's from the 30s, right? And nobody, when you have nobody laughing at Safety Last,
That's bad.
Yeah.
you've created something, right? So that's when I talked to this guy, because the guy who did the REM thing had this little video intro and extra to it. And at the extra, he said, and keep coming, stay tuned, because in September we're going to go on the road with the cameraman. And I was talking to the owner of the theater. I went, do not book that. Do not book it. Book my cameraman. Don't book it. And he did. And we're getting we've done 2 screenings so far. I'm promoting myself, sorry. And the houses have been packed and standing ovations for the accompanist. Fantastic. But again, when you see, anything like Laurel and Hardy or Buster Keaton on the big screen and you hear the laughs, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It makes my heart grow 10 times the size.
That's great.
That's all.
I just want to, I don't want to talk. I want to ask, because I've never been, the location for Perfect Day, the cottage. Has anybody been there? Just you?
Is it just me?
Tell me about the cottage.
I've been there twice, actually.
I
went there years ago. Won't bore you with it. With my daughter, who was not happy. She was 8 years old and she was fed up, and we still laugh about it. But anyway, I went, I don't know, 5 years ago, and I actually got in the house because I thought to myself, well, I'll knock on the door and just ask, because I had Richard, Van, and Randy were going to come and meet me a couple of days later, and I said if I could get into the house. Said, long story, I won't bore you with it. Knocked on the door, the guy said, come on in, and it was absolute mess in there. It was terrible. Yeah, it was terrible. I couldn't move around the table and everything, and I remember thinking, I've seen enough. But I did get in, and he did let me. He was quite kind, and he said you can come back any time you want. So if you want to get in, you can get in. But
because I'm so lonely.
All over the floor.
Yeah.
Did they shoot the interiors for the film in that house, or was that on a Roach set?
On the set, wouldn't
on the set.
I would think. I thought it must be.
Yeah.
So they just use the exterior.
What is it like when you actually get there and you see it for the first time? What is that?
It's exactly like. Well, I can't believe no one out here has seen it, but it's exactly like the film. You just go, well, that's it. If you go up the road there and you're looking for it, and then you go, well, it's not like you have to suddenly discover it, and it just pops. And it's towards the end of the road, and on the right hand side you go up, and then there it is, and it looks exactly like it is from the film. Probably one of the only houses that still looks exactly like it in the film. So yeah,
it must be surreal though. I mean, it's funny because we were just driving here tonight. The town near to where I live was used for the film Clockwise, Clockwise with John Cleese. And there's a scene in there where he's driving through, and Russell's a huge fan of it. So we drove past his location. I mean, it's nothing to me, but obviously it's where I go every day, But for you, it was like, oh yeah, and that's where the thing was.
I could sense it all. It was really strange.
Yeah.
I'll quickly ask Russell a question.
Oh, yeah.
When you visited the house and you met the person that lived there, how long did it take you to leave?
Well,
I get it.
I must have said goodbye 20 times at least. It took some time to leave. Yeah.
It sounded like you wanted to go quickly, but I did. I just wondered how long that.
I got further down the road, and it just went straight down the hole.
Did the owner of the house have any sense of its historical nature? Not at all.
He said I'd heard about it, but he really didn't.
Really?
Yeah, I'm surprised because people were rolling up there all the time.
Yeah. But obviously nobody knocks on.
No, nobody knocks on the door.
Trust you to knock on the door.
I knocked on all the doors. I'm not scared of anybody, and I know I have no shame. And I just knocked on all the doors and said, "Hey, look, did you know?" But they're usually people are quite nice.
Yeah, it's
usually.
Yeah.
Are you going to be knocking on my door at some point, Ross or Mal?
No, because I don't like you, Tony.
Fantastic. That's great. Okay. Does anybody have any burning questions about the film or about the podcast or anything that we talked about that you want to?
I have one.
Okay.
I don't think you did it and talked about this on the podcast. This is the only one where Laurel and Hardy try to actually fix a car. I mean, they drive cars and they crash cars and take the parts off of cars. But this is the only one where they actually try to fix the car.
Yeah.
And I wondered if maybe that was inspired by Harry Langdon being there now, because his act in vaudeville had to do with having his car falling apart and trying to fix it.
Great
That
question.
I never made that connection. I know that they did in Saps at Sea. They do a gag around a car that Harry Langdon did in one of his road shorts, The Big Kick, where the horn is blaring and, just trying to deal with the noise. I mean, Stan and Harry Langdon do it very differently, but and Langdon was a writer on that. So, that was probably his idea. But that's actually a really good point, because we do know that eventually Langdon and Stan became very good friends, but how quickly did they buddy up once he was on the lot, right? And kind of more equals than Harry being the big star and Stan not. Well, that's a really good question.
I would think, and again, it's only pure guesswork, but I would think, knowing that the film was supposed to take place at the picnic site, most of the film was supposed to take place at the picnic site, and then at some point they thought, we've got too much good stuff here. It was probably just a natural progression. Right, we've got a street, we've got a car, we've got people, and we're not going to leave here. It's probably quite natural that they then went to the car, rather than it being a Langdon influence thing. That would be my guess. I don't know, but it's a great point.
And cheaper too.
Yeah, I had a little look at Randy's script for The Perfect Day, and there was a bit about the radiator, and there was about putting corn in it, which they obviously used, but they ended up using that bit in the Hooskow. So that was in the original script that they were going to do that.
Well, it's funny because they also did it in Bacon Grabbers. Yeah, it's like they wanted to do that gag so bad. We're going to do that.
Yeah, it must have been Charlie Hall saying, "You've got to get this in somewhere, for God's sake."
Yeah.
It's my gag, and you're putting it in somewhere. Brilliant, that's great. Anybody else with anything you want to?
I've got a general observation. We were talking earlier about favorite films. This is kind of a favorite is one thing. Better that I'm looking with envy at all the gear behind Brad there, because I'm a musician and rock and roll is my other great passion. And I find it very objectionable when discussions say, well, what's the best album? What's the best artist? Is this artist better than that artist? I hate that. But I have favorites. I find with Laurel and Hardy, I obviously have films that I like better than other ones, but my appreciation often comes with individual bits within a film as opposed to the film as a whole. For instance, I love the whole first half of Our Wife. I love that. Well, they try to cram into the car, not so much, but I think the first half of that film is brilliant. I feel that way about You're Darn Tootin' too. I think the bandstand is brilliant. The pants ripping, yeah, that's okay. But I love the bandstand stuff, and it ties in with you showing the excerpts here. You kind of condense down into some of the best bits within the film. And I guess my other observation is I love their slapstick. I think their slapstick is absolutely brilliant. It makes me laugh. But you know what really makes me laugh? Watching their faces and their expressions.
Mhm.
If I can look at Oliver Hardy and literally fall on the floor laughing at just one of his camera looks.
Yeah.
They're so brilliant.
Mhm.
So my appreciation then of the whole, I think, centers more around that than it does. This is my favorite film. This film was better than that film. I love the bits.
I was saying to Patrick and John Riley, I just wanted to check with you. What was it like working with Steve Coogan? Did you enjoy that?
Fantastic. I'm glad that in the sea. Just
Yes.
that's noticed I was here. Nice that he added the sea because I didn't want to steal his thunder.
No, that was good of you. It was good of you. It was good of you to come in disguise tonight, which is brilliant. So yeah,
He needs to
yeah.
throw a beard over the jowls.
I was going to just wanted to say that on the film Stan and Ollie, one of the things I felt, and this is one of the things I said to Patrick on day one, I went from really liking the film to really not liking the film to loving it again for the simple reason. And I remember watching it with you, Tony. We watched it, didn't we, the first before it came out. I like it because it really shows the boys. But what they missed, I really feel this is an important thing that they missed, is that at some point they should have shown them on the screen. Not because they showed them at the end as the titles went up, but everyone's getting back to their car and getting out of there. So no one's watching that, the average person. And I think what they should have done is rather try and mimic them. And when they do the dance, they mimic them. They are not natural. It would just been a wonderful thing to actually project up the actual dance of the boys, because the magic wasn't shown in that film at all. So for me, I know something, and it's really what you're saying about the little moments of Laurel and Hardy, the little looks and the little flicks and little thing. I felt that was missing from the film of Stan and Ollie. They just should. I just think they should have shown something in there, because in Chaplin, if you remember the film Chaplin, at the very end of Chaplin, he comes back to the States to get his Oscar in 1975, I think it was, when it was. No, he died in 1975. But when on the back there, he was watching it at the back. Do you remember? And he's seeing himself in reverse, projecting. And they showed Chaplin. And suddenly, at the end of the film, you go, he was a genius.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that way until the end of the film. And I felt they should have done it with Stan and Ollie. I think if they'd shown them just those little flicks, those little moments, those little bits that we all love about them in that film, it would have made a difference. So that's my little ball for tonight. So,
That's like a really good point. They also made a big mistake with when they did show them doing the dance on screen. And I know that they chose that because it's iconic and it's them at their height, but it's not a hilarious scene.
No.
It's a charming scene. And then you have this audience busting a gut laughing.
Yeah.
And it's like those TV shows where, they have to tell you how funny someone is. Like it's like whatever. Lucille Ball gets a job on Ricky's show and they all laugh at her, and you have the agent going, she's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It's interesting though, because I remember someone saying, I can't remember who it was, I wish I could for tonight, but it was a famous person, like a poet that had watched them. I think it was a poet who'd watched that when they were doing the dance, and he wept because of the love between the two of them and the movements. It wasn't funny. It was the two of them saying, we love each other and we work well together. And I think that's why we all love the boys, is the fact that they love the fact that they love each other. And I think that to me, that's what was missing from that film. It was a mimicry, brilliant mimicry, but that's all it was. Sorry.
No, it's a really good point. But I think just on that, I agree. I would have loved to have seen Stan and Babe on the screen in that film, and I think what they were going for was not how funny they were, but how much do we love them?
Yes.
Because that end scene, I think, I was really moved by that end scene, the dance, the shadows on the stage or the curtain, whatever it was. It got me. It really got me. And I think there's a difference between like how funny they were, because they were, and we didn't get to see that in the film, unfortunately. And I think they missed a trick with that. But we realized just how much they mean to us at the end when you think they've gone and we're just left with the shadows. I think that was a really clever move.
No, it's nice.
But I would have loved to have seen more of them in the film.
Something.
It needed to be something, because as good as Steve Coogan and John C. Reilly were, they can't be Stan and Babe. Nobody can be Stan and Babe. No. I cringe when I watch them trying to be Stan and Babe. I prefer to see them more out of character when they were playing the actors rather than the characters.
Yeah, being Stan and Babe versus Stan and Ollie.
Yes. Trying to see people do Stan and Ollie, I hate it. People that are doing lookalikes, and I understand where they're coming from. It's a place of love and all that, but you can't do it.
Have you seen For Love and Mummy? For Love or Mummy?
I haven't seen it.
I got a DVD of it somewhere that I found for $1 or whatever. I'm gonna force it down your throat, and we're gonna do a podcast on it. But it's funny because you're talking about the end scene, and my wife is not a fan of Laurel and Hardy. She finds them slow, which to me is the point. She thinks Hardy's a bully, well, you're missing the point, kind of thing. And she knows comedy. She's well versed in comedy. She just doesn't like Laurel and Hardy. But she saw the movie twice, once in the theater with me and once we had some friends over. And at the end, she's like bawling her eyes out, right? Yeah. And I think you nailed it. It's a love. I mean, that movie is a love story.
Yes.
And when everyone was up in arms, going, oh, this is, none of this is true. It's like, yeah, I always said it felt authentic without being accurate.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a very good way of putting it. So,
there's not, they've got some clothes pegs in there to hang the story on to make it.
Yeah.
Because when they called the movie The Untold Story on the poster, it's like, yeah, because didn't happen. So that's the story, right? But, they told a beautiful fable about two men who loved each other. And there's all sorts of missed opportunities. Like, I would have liked to seen Stan laugh once because he had that great laugh, but they just made him so dour, unfortunately. But you saw the love. The performances were amazing. After a while, you felt like you were watching this other world version of them. It's like it felt like them. Yeah. Right. Like, I really, when I first saw it, like, I think a lot of people got caught up in, well, this is what happened, right? And then, as the film progressed, I went, okay, I see what they're doing, and then I've seen it a few times since, and I quite appreciate it. Yeah. It's a really charming little film.
Yeah. I think it's worth revisiting. I think understand once you accept the facts are wrong, leave that at the door and then watch it again. I think it does capture something. It captures the heart and soul of it, which I think is important. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's probably worth a podcast at some point.
I think the bit I liked was the opening sequence as they make their way to the screen for the little dance routine.
Yes.
As they pass through the studio and they're having a chat, and you get the feel of what it must have been like to be in the studio. Then you get the little cameo appearances, James Finlayson and people like that. I think that's nice. I didn't like the whole sort of fable of they fell out over the elephant movie. That ruined it for me. But I understand what you mean. Yeah. And I haven't revisited it since I saw it at the cinema.
Interesting.
Maybe I should go back and see it. I love all the little references as well. The trunk that falls down the stairs. Yeah. We really need that.
Yeah.
I like all those.
Yes. Yeah.
I can appreciate what you say about capturing the feeling and all that, but having read about the film and having seen a couple of excerpts of it, I have not felt compelled to see it because, as John just says, it's fiction. And I think what bothers me, and I'm a curmudgeon about this anyway, and I feel this way about songs about the music, or excuse me, movies about the music people that I love. People come to those who don't know the real story, and in their minds for the rest of their lives, whoever played Johnny Cash was Johnny Cash. Reese Witherspoon is June Carter Cash. That's fixed. And that goes all the way back to the Buddy Holly story. The Buddy Holly story captured admirably the feeling of those times, but half of it was fiction. Hell, Buddy Holly's life is interesting enough. You don't have to make up stuff. It's interesting enough entirely on its own. And
it goes back to Yankee Doodle Dandy and the Jolson story.
Well, yeah, you can go back to that too. So I'm a curmudgeon about that stuff. I would rather read the books and find out what really went on than see a movie representation of it that's half bullshit, or more. And it bothers me that stands in many people's minds as the actual story, and they don't think of Johnny Cash. They think of whoever the hell played him. I don't remember. That bugs me. Yeah. So I don't. I could go to Stan and Ollie, and maybe in the film, in the spirit that Patrick you've talked about, and maybe make something of it. But I'm hesitant because of that.
I don't blame you. Yeah, I don't blame you. And well done.
You could watch Love for Love or Money instead.
I remember reading about that. I don't recall the details, but I remember reading about it. How horrible it's got to be.
I watched about 5 minutes of that. I think I found it on YouTube or something, and then I was like, "Oh, I couldn't do it," because they were going to try and make a whole series, weren't they? Of that. That was their idea.
It was Larry Harmon, so of course was right.
There you go.
F. Murray Abrams going, it's a paycheck.
Well, a lot of people were saying on social media that Steve Coogan and John C. Reilly should do Stan scripts. They should make the films that were never made.
No,
Oh, please, no. No. Big mistake. And I was always amazed, and apologies if this is any of you who said it, but people that said, I watched the film and I forgot I wasn't watching the real Laurel and Hardy. I think, what? Are you kidding me?
That's my point.
Chris, you should have said, at some point you kind of forgot you were watching Steve Coogan, and it was like another kind of.
I felt like I was watching
a multiverse
the Men
version.
Yeah, I felt like I was watching an interaction. They missed a lot of stuff. Again, making Stan joyless was a big mistake.
Yes, I agree.
But I think that they captured a story that I don't think people wanted to admit. Was that you have a relationship with, whether it's a marriage or a working relationship, for 25 years, and you're going to hit, a bad spot, right? And I've of this thing, I've said it a million times online, that if I was Babe in 1938, I would have done the Elephant movie. I would have done 100 movies without Stan, because he was off his rocker, right? He was drunk most of the time. He's in this bad marriage. He was totally out of control. Hardy's career was at risk because of this, right? And I can just see Babe totally going, yeah, no, I'm out because you're crazy right now. So I think, what kind of bothered me a little bit when you would see the comments on social media, it was like, they never fought. They loved each other like brothers. It's like, who hasn't fought with their brother though? Like
exactly.
And this was like high stakes. Stan derailed their career to an extent and paid for it. They ended up at Fox because no one else would hire them, right? Because Stan had a bad reputation. So I'm sure, we all know that it all went well in the end, but I think that little core year, right, of let's say 38, 39, no doubt there was tension. And I thought it was interesting that they didn't capture that. They kind of made Babe the bad guy, like not showing up to get signed at Fox. It was like, again, wrong stuff, but I would have been more interested if Stan had been a bit more, for lack of a better word, true to reality around that story, where it was like he was a guy whose ego was such, but that becomes a whole other story, right? His ego was such that it derailed his career, and he paid the cost.
That's a warts and all story, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and you don't want that.
People don't want to see that.
Yeah. So this is very simplistic, and it's a very simplistic movie. It's a beautiful movie for me, but it's not true. And I totally get the idea that people will think that that's what really happened. You saw a lot of that, when the movie was out.
I think that's the depth of Laurel and Hardy, because in 1937 when they were doing Way Out West, we all understand pretty much that Stan was going through a terrible thing. So was Ollie. So was Babe. And yet look what they produced. And to me, when I first met with Patrick, my favourite book is Stan by Read Lawrence Garl, and I met him in 1980 when he signed my book and everything. And for me, reading the real Stan, I know it's not fully right. I get it. But the reality was, I was reading a real guy and a real man with real problems, and that makes it even more beautiful to me. The fact that these two guys can be going through hell behind the scenes and produce pure eternal magic in front of us. It's remarkable. And you can do that with great artists, like, as you say, with the people you were mentioning earlier about the musicians. They went through frigging hell in their lives, and yet they got on stage and they create stuff that you just go, that's my background, that's my backdrop to my life. That makes it even a more wonderful story to me. Not the word, isn't it? So it's interesting.
Right. Well, I know we've got a new somebody who's just arrived. I'm sorry you've arrived just as we're coming to the end, really. What's your name?
I'm Scott, by the way. My name's Scott Blaze.
Scott Blaze, nice to meet you, Scott. Thanks for dropping in, even if it was just towards the end. It's great to have your company. It's always nice to hear from other fans and to get people's views, and discussion is just great. I wasn't planning on talking about the Stan and Ollie movie, but that was one of the highlights of tonight for me, because it's just, you never know where it takes you. And like I always say on the podcast, the tangents that we go off on are often where the gold is. That's where the most interesting stuff comes from. So,
just on that note, obviously there's a bit of news, obviously with my house, because our local town have finally decided that they're going to be putting a blue plaque. So it's recognised by the local town council. So that's happening on the 20th of September. There's going to be a celebration at the museum afterwards. So it's a good legacy, because obviously it's carried on Bill Cuban's wish that it was recognised by Ulverston and the town and the county, and we finally got there. A year or so later of me badgering on about it, we're finally here.
How did you do it? What did you do to get that to happen?
So it was a combination of things, actually. I think it was
not paying your council tax, clearly.
It was like buses coming at once. So Heritage England, I think it's they were expanding their plaques outside of London. So Matthew Cooper and Mark Greenhow from the museum, we got together and we compiled an application. We didn't get through, but exactly at the same time, the council got in contact with me and said, we're a bit embarrassed that actually, the town recognises Stan and Ollie, but there's not one of our plaques on the house. Obviously, there is a plaque that Bill Cuban put up. So they said, would you be happy with that? I went, more than happy. So we got around to composing what we want written on it. Went backwards and forwards about 6 or 7 times. And the plaque is made, and it's being put up in a few weeks. And then the grand opening is on the 20th of September.
Marvellous.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well done.
It's taken this long, though, to actually get an official blue plaque on that house.
Yes.
Mm. Yeah. So we're talking roughly 50 years from when Bill Cuban put a plaque up there. So it's great, because obviously I knew Bill quite well. So it's quite nice to sort of carry on that legacy for him as well.
Yeah. Oh, well done.
Marvellous stuff.
Fantastic. Does anybody else have anything they want to say, mention, shout out, or query, complain even?
No.
We're all
This
okay?
is great. I hope we do it again soon.
Yeah, it was great fun.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for being with us. It's been wonderful to have your company and to be able to talk Laurel and Hardy. It's always a treat. And I will try and do this every month for the Plumtree patrons. Hopefully we'll get, as we do more, we'll get more people coming through. I'm glad it started small, because it's nice to be able to do this in a small way. It's much better because everybody's had a chance to speak. But I should probably say a little word of not warning is the wrong word, but as we're trying to get the Silence book near to completion. So podcasts might be difficult to get done because it takes a lot of time to do the podcast, especially for a new film, because I have to write a whole new chapter. I have to research it thoroughly, and I can't do it half-arsed, if that makes sense. So I will still try and do a monthly meeting like this, though, because I think I've really enjoyed this tonight. It's been fantastic. So if we haven't got a new film to talk about, what I might do is go back and talk about the films that we've already covered in the podcast. Because there's 30 something films that we've already covered, so we could actually start from Lucky Dog and do sort of catch up.
We could ask you guys what they want to talk about.
Or if you want to discuss a particular book, or a documentary, or a fictional biopic. Anything, I'm open to suggestions. Like I say, this is a meeting for the community, and I'm open to suggestions. So thank you one and all for coming and spending time with us. It's been brilliant. And until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
We're going now.
Bye. See you all soon, folks.
See you guys.
Thanks a lot.